Trinitarians. This is not that difficult. This is the passage that he brought up. But again, and I get this. So there's people that don't understand this. They see capital Lord in the Old Testament, and they think that that's just a title for Lord, but it's not. It's God's proper name. Okay. All right. We have angels. That's fine. Okay, but they're messengers. Okay, and a messenger is not to be confused for the sender. Okay. You can't be a messenger of Yahweh and also be Yahweh the same. And again, the argument that Yahweh texter used of Jesus in a way that proves that Jesus is Yahweh is collapsing the Son and the Father to one person. Now, if you're a modalist, you can make that argument. That doesn't work because prior to that, Paul makes it clear in a variety of places that, yeah, you can confess that Jesus is Lord, but God raised him from the dead. That's two persons. One is God, and the other person, by definition, is not God. He's the person that died. This is really not that difficult. But you see, it's a bunch of jumping around when you call some people on it. But I genuinely asked, like, I wonder sometimes why some people are Trinitarians and they can't give you a passage that says that God is three persons. And then when they give up the passages that say that God is one person and no one else, they want to run away from it. Like, come on.
Right.
All right.
Or, you 1 John 5:7, in which case, what's up, Jody? How are you? I'm going to give you 5 minutes because I kind of want to give a few people because it's kind of like a long queue of people to speak. So I'll give you 5 minutes, have you say, do your thing. And
well,
yeah, look for it.
Hey, what's going on, Dustin? My name's Anthony. Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Good. So I have a question for you, a bunch of questions for you about Romans 9:5. So in your recent video that you made, you said that many translations translate it as Haon, modifying Christos. So Christ, according to the flesh, who is overall, period, and then God bless forever. Can you find me more than one translation, more than one literal translation that punctuates it that way? You say in your video many translations, but there's only one, the complete Jewish Bible, that translates it that way.
RAV also puts the period.
So they put a period. There's others that make an independent doxology, but they have Haon, not modifying Christos, but rather it's part of the independent doxology.
Yeah. So the New Revised Standard Version has comes the Messiah who is overall, comma, God bless forever, amen. So they don't put it into a new sentence, but New Testament, they've chosen not to put a period there. But there's no comma there either. And obviously all punctuation in the Greek New Testament is just an editorial decision at that point.
Right.
But what convinces me with the whole thing is that, if you watched the video, I obviously pointed this out, is that earlier in Romans 1 and also later in Romans 11, when he gives the doxology, it's quite clear that it's referring to the Father alone. And that's the way that Paul does his doxologies elsewhere consistently. It'd be strange for him to say, by the way, that Jesus is one person who is overall, like all, really? Or like, he's overall God? That doesn't.
So I'm just curious though, because most scholars who take the position that you do, that's an independent doxology, they would not say that Haon is being modifying Christos, but rather it's part of the independent doxology. That's why I was very surprised to take that position.
Okay, so the reason why I did that, it's fair point. Okay, so in Romans chapter 10, this is what convinces me, and I'm willing to change my mind on this if you give me a better argument. I'm not an apologist. I'm always willing to adjust things. So let's see. Okay, so in Romans 10:12, I'll give you a chance to flip to that. In Romans 10:12. Upon whom people are calling. Yeah,
So,
but I
my
think,
next
I think
question
in,
for you
in
is
verse
you bring up
12,
a
the Lord
passage.
of all is Jesus.
Mm.
Got you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to make sure to clarify that because there's not, it's literally one literal translation who will translate it the way that you said, and you said many translations. So maybe you just meant to say that there's some translations that have it as an independent doxology. Maybe that was more of what you were trying to say.
Yeah. If I spoke a little over the top there,
problem.
then I can acknowledge that mistake. I can't remember when did I publish the Romans 9:5 video.
So you did a recent one. You did a recent video where it says like text that call Jesus God, and you speak about how you don't like that
Yeah.
terminology. And then you also did a one on Romans 9:5, but I think that one was a little bit
Yeah, that's fine.
Longer.
Yeah.
So my next question is: you use other passages like 2 Corinthians 1:3, where you have another doxology. You use Ephesians 1:3. You also use 2 Corinthians 11:31. All of these passages, though, actually prove that this is not an independent doxology in Romans 9:5. And the reason why is, so for example, in 2 Corinthians 1:3, you have elegetos hotheos. So you have hotheos here coming after elegetos. Rather, when you have in Romans 9:5, you have theos elegetos. So every single time you find an independent doxology, you actually have elegetos coming before theos, rather than what you find in Romans 9:5, where you have theos coming before it. You're aware of that?
In the grammar, that doesn't change the meaning of it. But the point is the subject of the one that's blessed forever, and that person's God, clearly not Jesus.
So do you have an example of an
You're done.
Do you have an
No.
It's
fine. I think this is a good question, and I don't think he's trying to do a gotcha thing. So
yeah, I'm really not. I promise you.
Yeah.
I'll give you an extra minute. Go on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So every single time you have an independent doxology, whether it's in the New Testament or the Old Testament, you always have eulogetos preceding hotheos. There's not even one counter example to this.
Yeah. So
this is pointed out. This is pointed out by Metzger. This is pointed out by Fazio. This is pointed out by Caraway in his book. Every single Trinitarian who's written on this issue points this out.
You have it in the Septuagint of Psalm 67:18.
But that has the double eulogetos.
Well, oh yeah, okay. Well, the point is, so the evloitos, that adjective, has to modify a noun. The closest noun to it is God in Romans 9:5. It's not going to leap that and go to something else there. So the word order, in a sense, doesn't change the meaning of the text.
Right, and that's why I would say it's literally the exact same construction you find in 2 Corinthians 11:31, which you would say is not an independent doxology, but rather it's being a description of hotheos, which would be the father in that text. So you have haon in 2 Corinthians 11:31, you have eulogetos, and then you would never say that blessed there is not something that's modifying hotheos. Rather, you would have it as a continuation, just like Romans 9:5. So I'm just curious why you take that position.
Yeah, because Paul has never called Jesus God in any other passage. So I mean,
so that's go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Just for a passage here that's grammatically ambiguous, what are the clues that we have based on what he believes? Okay, is he all of a sudden going to, after consistently distinguishing Jesus from God in every other occurrence, now all of a sudden, say Jesus is God? Especially when all of his other doxologies are clearly referring to God, not to Jesus. So I just think in light of that, that's the most natural way to read Paul's theology. I think interpreting text, this is the difficult thing with Paul, is that in order to interpret anything, you have to take everything else that he's ever said into account. And if we don't do that, then we could turn it, not we, but anyone can take a text and make it say whatever he wants. So I find that when I want to go to a confusing text like this, not even confusing, but just one that's grammatically ambiguous, and everyone admits it's grammatically ambiguous, you don't start there and build a theology. Not that you're doing it, but people start there. You start with the clear places, build that theology, and then you cautiously move to the ambiguous text and say, okay, based on the clear things, what is the best way to read this in a way that's most charitable? Now, if someone wants to say Paul's going to contradict all his clear statements and say something about Jesus, they're free to do that. I'm not very convinced of that. I'd rather Paul be more consistent to where all of his doxologies are referring to God, not to Jesus. So that's kind of where I'm.
So, hold on, can I just get a really quick just answer that and then I'll go?
Yeah.
No. Oh my goodness, you're done. Tony.
Respond on my video, and I'm happy to continue this conversation here. I think it's good for clarification, and this actually, it helps me because, I'll record an episode or I'll record a video, and I think, that this is a pretty good argument, and then I hear this feedback, and I think, okay, maybe I should have refined it a little bit better, because if people are coming with these objections, I'm like, okay, that's good. I need to hear that. Okay. Because I genuinely feel that if people don't find my arguments persuasive, I don't want to say that, well, they're stupid or they're blind or that they're corrupt or anything. I mean, that may be true, but the first thing I want to do is I want to look inwardly and think, okay, what could I have done better? And so hearing this feedback is helpful for me. So I appreciate Anthony bringing that up. Thank you for doing that. I'm not trying to cut you off here. If you want to respond in the comments of one of the videos, I'm happy to continue the conversation there, or you could shoot me an email. So, but thank you for that. I appreciate that. I mean, if people are gonna watch my stuff and interact with me, I'm happy to give them my time. I know this is your channel. I can't take this over.
No, you're good. No, I just wanted to say something. So Purify here, our friend here, he was a biblical Unitarian, and I mean, he says he is, but he's not. And then he believes that Jesus became the Holy Spirit at his resurrection. So he's got some tea party going on with modalism. And then, he refers to verses he's the comforter and this one and life quickening spirit. And I'm sure you've heard of it.
Hey, Dustin, nice to meet you.
Hey, how are you?
Hey. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because a lot of people make fun of me, but I am a biblical Unitarian. I don't believe Jesus is God. However, I believe in the post-resurrection. It's called the post-resurrection pneumatic co-substantiality of Jesus and the Father. That's what basically I could call it to simplify it.
Okay.
So I believe at the resurrection that Jesus became life-giving spirit. And Paul in 2 Corinthians 3:17, the Lord is the Spirit, calls Jesus the Holy Spirit. And many other texts like John 3:6, for instance, that which is flesh, which is a literal begetting coming out of the mother's womb. That which is spirit, which also has to be a literal, non-abstract begetting. So I believe all of us believers, when we resurrect, we will partake in the Holy Spirit, Hebrews 6:4. And it's not an identity collapse. Just like Seth is begotten from Adam, it doesn't make Adam by identity. Just like we're begotten of God, it wouldn't make us God by identity. So what do you say about that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I can totally understand why someone would look at the resurrected Jesus and see a bunch of passages where it looks like, wow, Jesus is very closely aligned with the Spirit. Jesus seems to be doing things with the Spirit that prior to the resurrection he was not doing. I get that. And actually I devote half of a chapter in my systematic theology to addressing this, because I feel like people either ignore it completely, which is kind of one extreme, or they take it a little bit too far. But I can understand how you looking at some passages, it comes across that way. So I feel where you're coming from. I don't feel like that's really silly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Just to be fair, I can see how someone can look at that and say, yeah, that makes sense to me. That's fine. So something that I think about here too. So we know that Christ is a title for the one who's anointed. He's the anointed king. And we know that Jesus was anointed at his baptism with the Spirit. Okay. Yes. So he has the Spirit there. And I think what you're seeing here, and we'll try to see how much we can kind of go and at least see eye to eye. At the resurrection, Jesus is raised by the power of God. He's given immortality. He's given he's given a spiritual body. He's given the Spirit in a way that's much greater than what he previously had, even though what he previously had was still a lot. I mean, he was empowered by the Spirit to do miracles and that
I
sort
like
of
to
stuff.
say that's the first fruits of the Spirit. Just like the Bible, when it says we have the first fruits, but we groan for what's to come. So right now, it's what we have as far as walking in the Spirit is functional. But in the next life, it's what we are by
Okay.
nature. Get it?
Yeah.
Nature, all of us do.
Sure.
I believe
Yeah.
in order for us to be a true son of God, we have to be made up of what God is made up of. And that happens after we resurrect.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Before you say something, Dustin, I want to make the case that what you are and who you are is two different things. You know how Trinitarians always say that, right? But it's true that what something is, like 1 John 3 says, we will be what the Father is. We will be what? By nature. And who God is different. We're not going to be who God is. Just not what we're like. We're not our sons physically.
What text is that you said?
1 John 3:2.
Why
A lot of people think this is about
Father?
Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people think this is Jesus. I used to believe that. I used to be a Trinitarian last year,
Yeah.
but I converted. But it's actually not Jesus in this verse, in my opinion, because of context. We will see him as he is. Well, they already saw Jesus as he is, John and everyone else did. And it says in verse 1, below what manner of love the Father has bestowed on us, that we should become children of God, right? So I see us not just being adopted sons of God, but real, true son of God. Like in Romans 1:4, it says Jesus is a fixed son of God according to the Spirit of holiness by the resurrection. And when Jesus said things like, we will come to you, I see that as the Spirit, that one Spirit that Ephesians 4:4 says, one Spirit, one Lord. It sounds kind of oneness-y, but it's not. I believe when Christ says Christ in us, a lot of verses says Christ in us, the Father in us. I don't see that as just remembering a story and a bunch of words. I don't see that as metaphorical, because Muslims believe that you become a son of God metaphorically, or that God is in them metaphorically, right? I don't see that. I see the risen Jesus in us all literally. That's the distinction I have. That's the fringe minority of Unitarianism I'm under than the mainstream. You could call it mainstream Unitarian.
Sure. That's fine. Can we, I tell you what, I mean, because you put out like 20 passages and stuff like that.
Right.
And this is interesting. It's fair. Can we
focus on one, right?
How about you ask about one that we can talk about?
Okay, 1 John 3:2. Do you think that's about Jesus or the Father?
So I think it's about Jesus, and I'll tell you why. Because throughout 1 John, the author, if you read it very carefully, the author swaps between God and Jesus just like that quite often, particularly in chapter 2, where it happens. But I think it's because in verse 2, where it talks about when he appears, and the hope in the New Testament is for the appearing of Jesus, is for the appearing of the second coming of Jesus. It's not for the appearing of God.
But in the Old Testament, many times God appears, right? God appearing.
I don't think he does. I don't think he does. I think we have angels that appear that represent God. But I agree.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree. But there is verses
John,
that say the Father visited his people. God walked among us, even says. And it says God appeared to Abraham many times in Genesis. I believe Moses as well. So many places where it says God appears. So why the assumption that this is Jesus? And it's saying we will see him as he is, but they already saw Jesus as he is. They already saw the risen.
I don't think that the readers saw Jesus as he is. Okay, these are people like in the 90s. Okay, they're probably like second or third generation Christians. I don't think that they did see him as he is, and I think there's a sense in which God raised Jesus, and then God highly exalted him, and Jesus in the presence of God is like glowing and majestic. It's, not the kind of thing that they saw when Jesus was raised from the dead. He just kind of looked like he was confused for a gardener in John chapter 20. I get your point there. Like I could see like it looks like it appears that way. But I think a lot of people have looked at this and said, because the hope of the appearing and the second coming of Jesus is so dominant in the New Testament, that they take this as a reference to Jesus, and that would have been apparent to the readers. And later in 1 John, I think it's in chapter 4, he says, no one has seen God or can see God. Like he gives one of those flat out statements there.
I believe it is very there are verses where no one can see God, but then there's other clear verses where you can see God. Jesus said, he that is of God, he has seen God, right? Or things like that. Okay, we can move on from that. What about 2 Corinthians 3:17?
Yeah, that's okay. 'Cause this is the verse that I wanted him to bring up there, and I'll give an answer to this. So in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, what Paul is doing is he's quoting, this episode of Moses going up on the mountain and getting to experience God and that sort of thing.
It can't be Moses, because that's the veiling was during Moses. That was the veiling, and it says that veil is removed through Christ. It says it the verse before, and then in the next chapter it says we preach Jesus as Lord. So is that the same Lord in verse 17? It has to be.
Well, this is the point, though, is that in the discussion of earlier in chapter 3. He is talking about Moses. He is talking about that. And what he does is that Paul is actually, I don't have my Bible in front of me, it's downstairs, but he cites a passage from the Septuagint, or part of it, where it's Moses is coming up to Yahweh. And so the nearest antecedent in the thought of Paul there is that the Lord is the Spirit, meaning the Lord God, not the Lord Jesus Christ. I think that actually settles the issue. And that's the most natural way to read Paul in light of what he has previously said. And I argue that in a video on my podcast, for whatever it's worth. I know some people have taken it as the Lord Jesus Christ, but
yeah, I take it as Jesus.
And I get that. It seems to change the reference of Lord in the context of what he was previously talking about.
Halal, can I ask him one thing before my time runs out, please?
Your time is already. Your time's
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
No,
okay.
No, purified. Guys, when I bring you guys up, I put the timer. Don't just you see the minute go down. Just don't make me have to, because then I feel bad. All right. So yeah,
I feel bad too. Like I we're having fun conversations, and the thing is, like, if people are being like respectful, like I'm cool. Like I'm, but if someone's being a jerk, then I'm like, I don't want to waste my time with this person here. But if you've got people lined up, I'd like to talk to people, whatever.
They're lines.
I tell you what, I could do one more, because it's getting late for me, which I know for you, it's like you're getting ready to start your day. Do you even sleep?
No, I do. I sleep.
Okay, I could do one more, and then I need to head to bed. So I got in the morning.
Guys, who's requesting that's a Trinitarian? So we can get a Trinitarian up. Who's requesting that's a Trinitarian? Because last time I brought a lot of Unitarians up. So let me see this guy.
I don't care. I'll talk to anybody. If someone wants to be respectful, I'll talk to them.
Thank you. Hold on, let me see. Okay, this guy is like taking forever. Let me see. Guys, is there anyone who's let me see. Okay. Okay. Let me see this guy. Okay, let me see. Let me see this guy. Sorry, my bad. Oh, Jude here. Wait, hold on, Jude, are you here? Jude, do you want to come up? Wait, Jude, do you want to come up? Jude's still here. Maybe he's not responding. Anyway, go on, continue.
Yeah. So my first question was I wanted to ask, do you believe that any of the apostles or their disciples called Jesus God or believed that he was God, or you just don't think they ever believed he was God?
I think I actually take that as two different questions. I think you can look at Jesus in his role as the agent of God. So for example, like in John 17:3, which I think is paradigmatic for the Gospel of John, Jesus says, you've got the only true God and Jesus Christ, whom the only true God has sent. And so you got the only true God sending Jesus, but sending means that Jesus is the agent of God. And the agent of God fully represents God in every possible way. So agents of God in their role as God's representative in the Old Testament can be called God. But there's a difference between calling Moses God or calling the Davidic king God or calling a human judge God and thinking that they are God. So that's why I think that there's two different questions. Because I do think that the New Testament does call Jesus God twice. Once in John 20:28. Now, not all Unitarians believe this, but I think that's just the most honest way of reading it. But calling Jesus God doesn't mean that he is the only true God. Calling Jesus God there acknowledges that he is the agent who fully represents the only true God. And by this time, the ministry of Jesus has completed, and he's demonstrated that he really is the agent whom God has sent.
Okay, so I can argue and say, all right, I know you might talk about the variance in Jude 1:5, where it says Jesus is the one that delivered the children of Israel out of Egypt. Now,
Okay.
you might the actual manuscript, actually the earliest manuscript, which is P72, says it's Jesus. Now you find an early attestation from Alexander who says God. Then you find Origen, Cecil, Jerome, and all of them say it's Jesus, right? Because of the actual IC that's in the manuscript, right? And they all believe that it is Jesus as in that manuscript. Now, why would Jude, and everywhere in Jude, when he refers to Lord, he's referring to Jesus, except in one place when he's quoting an apocrypha. So why does Jude say Jesus saved the children of Israel out of, basically he's calling him as the Yahweh that should save the children of Israel?
Well, I don't think that Jesus was the original reading of the text there. And actually, the two earliest quotations that we have of it from Clement of Alexandria predate all the extant manuscripts that we have. Furthermore, every single time in the book of Jude that Jesus is described, and you could look at this consistently. I'm going to pull this up here. This is another reason that convinces me. Every single time that Jesus is described, he is Jesus Christ. It's Jesus Christ every single time, except for in Jude 5, where interestingly enough, he's not Jesus Christ. Okay, which is suspect. Okay, why is he consistently Jesus Christ in every other place except for this one? It looks like it's something that's been changed. So because all the other consistent places say Jesus Christ and Jude 5 says Jesus, and our two earliest quotations from the 2nd century say God and not Jesus, I think that's a stronger argument that the original reading didn't say Jesus and that it was changed to Jesus.
Okay, actually, many scholars believe it's the other way, that those who were trying to shy away the fact that they want to bring the pre-incarnation of Jesus in the Old Testament into the New Testament, they shied away from it, putting it as a God. Now, if you can say the earliest attestations to it, Clement Alexander, because they say God. Now, someone else might argue they did believe Jesus was God. So whether they say it was God, because they believed Jesus was God, you would make that argument that it might be Jesus. But most of the scholars would say, and from the earliest, because of the early manuscript, they would believe that it's supposed to be Jesus. If Origen, Cicely, Jerome, Tertullian say it's Jesus, then why throw them away?
I'm not throwing them away. It's the thing is, Origen and Tertullian are in the 3rd century. Okay, I don't know if I think you might mean Cyprian. I think maybe that's the person you were thinking there. But Jerome is like 5th century. Okay, but Clement of Alexandria is 2nd century. He is the earliest witness to what the book of Jude actually says, and he predates the earliest manuscripts that we have. Okay, so the earliest witnesses that we actually have of people quoting Jude 5, the earliest, say God, not Jesus. So you can't ignore that. You can't explain that away. You have to deal with that. Unless you're going to say that the earliest witnesses were wrong and the later witnesses are correct. That's a hard sell. And it's not true that most scholars say this. I have like 13 different commentaries on the book of Jude, and they don't think this, okay? And the reality is we should not be building our theology on passages that are textually questionable. I'd rather focus on clear evidence. But I'm trying to say, hey, this is a textual variant, and here are the reasons why I think that Jesus is not the original reading.
Okay, so I think I would.
Just what's it called? Just last thing that's gonna,
How about one more question? One more question. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. So I think I would disagree and say I believe it's Jesus based on whether you have an attestation from Clement or whoever. I think there was a variance because of those who thought that they wanted to shy away from it being the pre-incarnation of Christ. Now, for example, if I bring up Leviticus 11:45 and Judges 2:1, Leviticus says it is Yahweh who delivered the children of Israel out of Egypt. Judges say it is the angel of Yahweh that delivered the children. So then who exactly is it? Is it Yahweh? Is it the angel of Yahweh? Because most of the Old Testament says Yahweh. You see it in Judges, it says the angel of Yahweh.
So I think it ultimately does go back to Yahweh, but an angel is Yahweh's representative, and an agent fully represents the sender. Right? I brought this up when I was talking to the previous person. So you could say an angel, but ultimately the glory goes back to the sender. That's fine. I mean, you'll have places if you look close enough, you can find where it says like, Moses delivered the children of Israel. Well, okay, did Moses do it? Did God do it? Are you going to say that Moses is God? You can say that Moses is the angel. We have a passage in Exodus 23:21 where God says, I'm putting my name into this angel. I am putting my name, singular pronouns, I'm sharing my name and my authority with this angel who's going to be my agent. That's fine there. But Jesus is not an angel. Jesus is a human being. And Jesus is not Yahweh. Jesus is distinguished from Yahweh consistently in the New Testament, especially with Psalm 110:1, where Yahweh says to my Lord. So, I mean, if you can make an argument you want there about Jude, that's fine. But I don't know who in the 2nd century that is giving quotations to Clement of Alexandria. What sort of Christians are shying away from Jesus being incarnate? We don't have Trinitarians in the 2nd century. We don't have modalists in the 2nd century. We have subordinationists in the 2nd century. The facts don't add up. It makes much better sense to see that, again, with every other occurrence in Jude is Jesus Christ, and this variant doesn't say that. That looks like it's the one that's the outlier. It looks like it's the one that's been changed.
Right. Well, that's never new. Can't lie, Dustin. Like, amazing work as usual. Like, I really be out here in the trenches, man.
You're rough with people. I'm trying to. I don't want people to hate. Like, it's, and this is a hard thing to do. It's like, how can I respectfully disagree with somebody and not have the person hate me?
Dude, I took someone one time to Romans 16:27 to the only wise God. And I said, well, who's the only wise God? Well, he goes, it says the only wise God. So I was like, is what? Jesus is a stupid God? Like, what do these people like? Do you know? I honestly think that, people just don't sometimes, sometimes it's so frustrating because it's staring them right in the face and you just want to,
No, I get that. And you know what? I'm pretty sure that 5 years from now, I'm going to be reading some text and I'm going to say, wow, I've read this 100 times and I didn't notice this. So, I learn new things all the time, and I hope that,
I will say though, I am still kind of like new to this. I feel like as time goes on, I might mellow down a bit, but just give me time.
well, it's
I'll get there.
anyway, yeah, I've done this long enough to know that you can't actually know what's going on in the back of someone's mind. Because I could sit there and I could show them some text, but there are a lot of other like reasons in the back of someone's mind why someone won't accept it. Admitting that you've been wrong, or that the person who taught you is wrong. What if your parents taught you? You're going to admit that your parents are wrong, or that your parents are lost. There's some people that don't want to make those jumps and those steps in their mind. And so I'm sitting there trying to say, like, look at this text, and they've got this going on in the back of their mind, but I can't see that. I'm telling them to look at this text. So, and I have noticed this too. And this is just a piece of advice for anybody. Most people don't change their mind in one day. They have to leave the conversation. They go to bed and they're lying there and they're thinking about it. They're thinking about it. They're thinking about it. And they're going through the conversations in their mind. And they're just like, yeah, like my position doesn't make any sense. And I also know this too, that I can't take away someone's belief system and leave them empty without giving them something that is better. Because if I just say your view is wrong, but I don't give you anything else, you're not going to listen to me. You're going to hold on to your view because that's all you have left. You don't have anything. You don't have nothing. So, and like all of that just takes a lot of time. And so I've just kind of learned that, I'm going to be patient with some people. If I can continue the conversation later, that might be helpful. Like if I have a good interaction with someone, even if we disagree, even if we respectfully disagree, if they're willing to come and talk to me again later, then I've got a better chance of success. Okay. And also because I'm not an apologist, I'm willing to admit if I've been wrong, if I've made a mistake, or if I wasn't clear enough. So I'm always willing to change my mind on that sort of stuff. That's the difference between a scholar and an apologist. An apologist digs in their heels and say, I've got this doctrine I have to defend, and I'm never going to admit that this doctrine is wrong. A scholar says, wherever the evidence goes, that's where I'm going to go. And I'm willing to change my mind if someone gives me a better argument. So, I mean, if someone wants to convince me the Trinity is true, I'm willing to change my mind. I've not yet heard that argument. But, that's why I'm always interested in where people get their arguments there from. So that's all that I can do. I'm going to head to bed. So
thank you so much, Dustin. Have a good night. It was so lovely
to be a Trinitarian. Yeah. Good seeing you all. I'm glad I caught you. So y'all have a good night.
By the way, guys, make sure you guys follow Dustin, okay? Just make sure you follow his YouTube and make sure you follow his page. He is awesome. I think he closed out of the app, so let me just exit him now. But yeah, can't lie. I need to W Dustin, man. He's awesome. Yeah, he is awesome. But you know what, guys? I do need to, I try to be chill with you guys. I really try. But guys, come on. Some of you guys are no, it's not about when I draw people because they disagree. It's not about that. It's about the fact that I come up and I ask a question. My question gets sidelined. Well, let me ask you this. At that point, what are you going to do? If you can't understand basic comprehension skills, like the sentence above my head, how can I convince you of anything else? I mean, are you arguing with me or are you arguing with Jesus? It's plain as day, dudes. It's right there, above my head. No, I can't bother to argue virgin birth with you. Go away. No, go away. CBA. But Yeah, guys, make sure you guys follow Dustin. He is so awesome. He's so amazing. His arguments are so ironclad. But Yada, like, am I too hard sometimes?
What do you mean hard in the aspect of like coming at people crazy or something?
Yeah, like sometimes.
No, I feel like you give like a good family member vibe. Like you really actually care about people's souls and stuff. And when they start saying dumb stuff, is when it's like, all right, now it's plain and in your face. And I feel like a lot of people need to hear that. Like, do you hear the words coming out your mouth? I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I would say this though. the stupid comments.
No, that's what I say. You said to the only wise God. So when it's Jesus, is stupid dumb? What kind of nonsense are we living? I could tell Dustin like kind of like chuckled when I said that, but he was like, okay, calm down. I just want comfort. I was like, sorry. But I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, I'll try to be more like
I feel like you keep it real, bro, and people just like they'll look at something. Yeah.
But I feel like it's like the rawness that people like about me. But obviously, like I do feel like I need to be more like, oh, Christina.
Bye.
You know, like with like a halo, you know, I need to have that vibe going on, but we'll get there. We'll get there. You know, the fruits of the spirit is slow to anger. It's not never get angry. So, I mean, I try, man. I try. I really do try, guys. But, you know.
It's like I see it though, like majority of the times you do be real calm until it's like somebody comes up being disrespectful, overly trying your faith. So it's like we're still human. Christ said that we can walk in his shoes. He didn't say that we will all the time. Like Christ flipped tables and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. He called the apostles fools, okay? He called them stupid.
Right.
Okay. So if being stupid, look, if you're smart, I'll tell you you're smart. If you're pretty, I'll say you're pretty. And if you're dumb, I'll tell you you're dumb. And if you're very smart, Dustin, I'll tell you you're very smart, incredibly intelligent. But, you know.
Only people I should say like shouldn't even be name calling is Trinitarians because they have a false doctrine. So you're just calling people stupid and slow just because.
I try not to like look. I try not to do it in a way that's like, okay, you know, I try not to how do you say, use those sorts of terms, you know, unjustly. Like